Cowboys Nation has shifted to the West Coast. Fans filing into River Ridge Sports Complex in Oxnard, California. We are 60 miles west of downtown Los Angeles as we welcome you to Dallas Cowboys Training Camp 2022, presented by American Airlines. Here over the next 2 hours, we will give you in-depth coverage of the Cowboys Saturday practice. Pads are back on, and the physicality has been a storyline in camp to this point. Alongside Nate Newton, Isaiah Stanback, Mickey Spagnola, I'm Kyle Yeomans. We will be here for 2 hours, gentlemen, so settle in, buckle in. We've got a ways to go. The VIP fans will be behind us in just a matter of moments. We can even see them filing in as we speak. But it really, Nate, when you look at the physicality of this camp, that's been the biggest storyline because they want to put some toughness on this roster.
They have. They've added a few guys in Tyler Smith and Big John Ridgeway. They went out and drafted some guys that showed in college that they were physical. A little bit of it showing up in these 4 or 5 padded practices. I mean, they've gotten a little chippy with one another. But what I've liked is how the tight ends have gotten more physical in the inside run periods.
No, you're absolutely correct. That was one of the areas that this team has struggled with, which is inside the trenches, right? The interior offensive lineman, interior defensive lineman. Well, they addressed that this offseason. They went out there, they got the big Ridgeway. They have guys coming back like Big Bo, Osa, and all those guys. And it's going to be McNasty in the inside, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of it today.
And that's something the Cowboys obviously needed, especially defensively, and playing the run. The defensive run problem was showed itself up in the loss to San Francisco when they ran for 160-some yards. So they got to be tougher inside. But the other thing I've liked about not just the physicality, it's been the tempo of practice. These guys are moving. He keeps them going, and they only have a certain amount of time on the field, so Mike McCarthy's trying to squeeze in as much as he can into those 2-hour padded practices.
You know who else has been moving throughout training camp so far? It's been Mickey Spagnola down there at the edge, the legend himself. 37 camps for you, is that right?
37 camps.
Yes. Wow, I mean, that's unbelievable. Can we combine to get 37? Where are you at?
No, this is.
Well, now wait.
What?
Nate's had a quite
Nate's
a few.
had a good.
I had 6 years.
How many did you have?
With the plan, I don't even know. I don't count them because I just want to come. I just want to be a part of this thing.
You had at least 13 as a player, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And then all the ones with
about
us.
10 or 12. Yeah. I don't care, man. Yeah.
We're going to say 25, but even then, I mean,
Isaiah,
Isaiah, you probably got 8, 9, something like that.
Add up to anything.
This is my second, so yeah, we've got a little bit of a ways
you're
to go.
really getting there, Kyle.
I'm the young one. Yeah, I'm trying to get to that point. Speaking of get to that point and a little bit of youth here, good segue, Nate. Well done. Wide receivers have also been a big talking point. We're going to see plenty of the wide receivers coming up here in a couple of minutes. But really, Isaiah, you played the position in the NFL level. So what do you look at when you find these wide receivers, the young guys, and see them growing in a training camp like this?
Yeah, you're looking for consistency, and you're looking for continued development. That's one of the things they've had an opportunity to be at OTAs. They've had an opportunity now to be the double time on the install, and now they have the pads on. Now they're competing, and you want to see how are they going to adjust. You know, the install is done. The defense is starting to make alterations and starting to make different changes in terms of looks. And are these guys going to continue to be dependable? Are they going to make those catches? Are they going to be at the depth they need to be at? And overall, does number 4 trust him?
How much does Dak trust him?
I think that's a big thing because a lot of times when you put young guys in, so you don't have James Washington out there, you don't have Michael Gallup out there, so you've gotten to use some young guys. We saw right away in the offseason he trusted Jalen Tolbert, their third-round draft choice. But the guy that's emerged since we've gotten here is Dennis Houston. And, Isaiah pointed it out the other day. He said not only does Houston get open, but the quarterback trusts him to throw him the ball when maybe somebody else is open. So I think that's another guy everybody needs to keep their eye on, number 3.
And I think you need to keep your eye on number 85, Noah Brown. He's lost about 15, 20 pounds. Talking to the scouts, he's running better routes. And he want to get into that third or fourth receiver. He want to compete for that. So he's been working hard. He's been doing what he had to do. But this Turpin guy, this guy they want to call Turpin time, it's a bitter taste when you get up and when you line up in front of him because he's so quick, so small, and so fast. We'll see. We'll see just who number 4 trusts today.
That's one of the biggest things. Kevontae Turpin, you'll see him in a couple moments because he'll be returning punts in our next segment. But when you look at what he brings to the table as a special teams ace, Isaiah, but you still can't make the roster only as a special teams ace. You got to make some impact on the back end of the wide
Or
receivers.
maybe he can.
Can he?
He's got to have some kind of impact, right?
In this day and age, I don't think that it's possible to make the team simply as a return man, simply because of the adjustments that the NFL has made in terms of the rules and where the kickoff lines up now. Now, majority of the kicks, I would say probably 90% of the kicks in the NFL now are out the back of the end zone or they're touchbacks. Guys aren't bringing those out, so you negate that opportunity to return. So now you're looking at the opportunity to just simply hold a man on your roster, hold a whole entire roster spot for somebody that's going to return punts. Well, how many punt returns are really being returned? Maybe 40% of the punts, right? So you can't just isolate him and secure that roster spot for simply that. He's going to have to show up in days like today. He's going to have to show up in the preseason in those first three preseason games to show that he can make additions on the offensive side of the ball as well.
Well, you could always hand him the ball, too.
Jet sweep is a big thing with us, but we heard the special team coordinator 2 days ago.
Yes, he did, yeah.
All but sealed it.
Yep.
And you told me, you say,
Yeah.
Nate, Turpentine has made the team. Why did you say that?
I said it because when you have your special teams coordinator, Bones Fossil, come out and make the statement that, hey, CeeDee Lamb, we're not going to have access to him.
Sure.
Right? Michael Gallup, we're not going to have access to him.
Tony Pollard,
he's not going to be – they're not going to allow him to be the return man.
Yeah.
Well, he brought up Turpin. He said this guy is electrifying. He was a USFL MVP. This dude is explosive. Anybody that tries to come close to him, the first man, he's going to make miss. So he's able to make those big plays. So, yes, from that perspective, Nate, he's going to have an opportunity to make this roster. All he has to do is show that he's valuable and accessible on offense. That he has a roster spot.
You know, what they can do is that they'll say, okay, we're going to keep 6 wide receivers. Normally you keep 5.
Yeah.
So now you keep 6. Count the 6th one as a wide receiver.
Nice.
You know, you keep, Goodwin as a special teams guy. He doesn't play cornerback. So I think he can make it if he can return punts and be a threat when they put him on the field. Now, when they put him on the field, he's got to be somewhat of a threat at wide receiver. Otherwise, when he goes out there, they go, oh, here comes the reverse.
Yep. Now, before we wrap things up and we get to see Kevontae Turpin and the special teams unit do things in person, Nate, when we look at these next 2 hours, what can a fan expect we're going to get a chance to look at a little bit here?
You know, this is close to a preseason game, so you'll see some energy with these players. They'll come out, they'll realize the moment, and especially with the young guys, they'll be wide open. Sometimes the veteran might say, hey, man, hold down, young fella. But the competition up, and that's what we need around. We need the physicality, the tempo, and everything. So expect to see that with the crowd and everybody pressing in. And with us over here, man, they know we're going to be critiquing, so they're going to do their job.
Darn right, Isaiah.
This is a preview of what these guys can expect next week. This is the highest level of competition they're going to experience prior to going to practice with the Denver Broncos next week. So exactly what Nate said, these guys are going to be vying for some positions and opportunities in terms of depth charts going into the preseason game.
And we should warn everybody, they've just been thumping up. They haven't been tackling. They haven't putting guys on the ground. But if they've told them in there they're going to be on TV, you never know what happens in this one.
Cowboys Nation watching from here, a crowd of nearly 3,000 expected today here in Oxnard, California. It is supposed to be absolutely packed. When we come back, it is Turpin time. Kevontae Turpin and the Kickers take center stage as we get things started for Training Camp 2022 presented by American Airlines. clouds have parted. The fans have filed in. Practice is underway here from Oxnard, California. It is a great day to be in Oxnard for training camp. And gentlemen, let's go ahead and go right to the action because we are getting a great look at the kicking situation here at practice. Jonathan Garibay, the rookie, has already taken a couple of kicks initially. He is up at the moment, and this is probably what, Mickey, maybe a 40-yard-ish attempt, a little bit past the 40-yard line.
Yeah.
We're at a very interesting angle. We're getting some help from some friends underneath the goalpost to make sure that this goes through. Plenty of leg on that one,
that was good.
As it does miss to the left. So didn't miss that one.
Has a distance on it, though.
So I think he's gone 1 for 2 at each distance. So 2 for 4, and that's 500, and that's baseball good, but not good in football.
Not football good.
You know what? One of the things I noticed when they were kicking early, they were kicking off the holding tee. Mm-hmm. I don't know what Garabay's doing, but he's spraying the ball. He's not kicking it straight, and it's tailing to the left all the time.
Well, you know what, Mick? When you're trying to find your groove, that's what happens with kickers. They end up pushing it, they're pulling it, they're trying to find their way. So that might be exactly what you just explained.
Now, Hyralahu just nailed that one easy money straight through the middle, so he has been much more efficient so far.
Yeah, he has. I've only got him down for missing 1 of the 5 that he's attempted so far. So he's been the most consistent so far, you guys. And
hold on, he's 1 of what?
He only missed 1 of 5.
4 or 5.
No.
I'm like, okay.
It today.
Yeah.
And he missed that one.
Yeah. This is a bad angle, huh?
So something weird has happened over there. It's like they're kicking into the wind, right? Yeah. Well,
they have the distance, though. The distance is there. It's just...
No, it's there's a swirl.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if this has got anything to do with it, right? But one of the trees in the middle is missing. So there's an air tunnel coming right through the middle.
So, but even with that, I mean, John Fossil spoke to the wind and some of the challenges that it does present. I mean, it's coming off of the coast.
But it's not
that's
consistent.
New York. That's Washington.
There's no trees in Washington.
I agree.
New York,
I know.
right?
I know. But
there's
that's
a tunnel there.
This is supposed to be a makeable kick.
I hear you, man, but we're talking about two of supposedly the best 32 in the world, right?
Well,
you know what we're talking about, Nate?
You're hoping one of them is.
You know, fellas, I haven't said anything because, and I make it too simple, you're a kicker.
Okay.
All you do is kick. Kick the ball through the uprights, please. Anything inside 48, I expect you to make.
See, we're not talking about 50-yard, 60-yard field goals here. These are 45-yard attempts. He missed that one.
Not even close.
You know,
that's really the biggest thing, Mickey, is sure there's a little bit of a wind tunnel there, and it does provide for a challenge, maybe a little bit of a knuckling ball as it's floating toward the uprights.
You got to kick it solid. If you don't kick it solid, you give the wind a chance to play with the football. It's almost like they need some kicking consultant to say, okay, here's where your plant leg is or your plant foot, and see if you can correct that.
Hey,
that was Hyralahu.
But now, isn't that what we got special team coaches for?
Well, not all special team coaches are kicking. When you played, who was the kicking expert?
Hoffman. Coach Hoffman was our kicking expert.
Right.
So, I mean, we can't afford wow, really? You losing me there. A kicking expert? Our games, too many games are being played that's coming down to 3 to 4 points. A missed field goal and a missed extra point costs you games. We can't afford to have that.
So he just made 2.
He's drilling those.
He's been the most consistent. He's been the most consistent, hands down. He had one bad day.
Who's that you're referring to, Mick?
Liram, Hyralahu.
What number is that, Mickey?
9.
Okay.
Getting a great look at a couple of these guys. As the kicking is going on, we're also getting a look back and forth at some of the ball security drills that were going on. Here's Jonathan Garibay, as that one was good. That's the biggest thing for a rookie, though, Mickey, and John Fossil kind of talked to it. There is a confidence level that needs to be attained prior to going into the preseason, because ultimately that's what you're going to do your benchmark on. That's what you're going to set as your benchmark, is in a stadium when the lights are on, pressure is on. Even though it's preseason, you're still trying to make a roster. That's the more important side of things as opposed to being out here.
You know, he was really good. He missed that by a mile. I can see that from here. He was really good in OTAs when they kicked, in mini camps when they kicked, and he kicked the ball straight. Now, he got here, and I don't know if it's the competition, and you guys know sometimes competition, can get to you, but his ball's fluttering. It's fluttering, and he's not – it's not going like end over end.
And the kickers really can't afford that because, especially with this preseason, the way it's set up, the first week when you go to Denver, most kickers, they get disregarded in their performances in Denver simply because of the elements that they're in. So the reps that they're getting right here in practice are uber important because those guys, pretty much what happens next week doesn't really matter.
So now we're switching over to look at some of the ball security drills here. And Isaiah, you played both quarterback, you played wide receiver, you've been around these types of drills previously. How important is it to have something like this to kind of set a foundation to build upon?
This is the fundamentals, and the great thing about what these guys are doing right here is everybody's a part of it. Offense, defense, it doesn't matter what position you are. If you're going to make any contributions on either side or even all three phases of the game, you're a part of this drill because one of the emphases coming off of last year is turnovers. And anybody that has opportunity to get their hands on the ball, they want them a part of these drills.
So that's the end of the first period. Now we move into a couple of different things. And this is where, in that first segment, we talked about Kevontae Turpin. You're going to see some Kevontae Turpin. These are the punt specialist and the punt return. A couple different looks at these guys. And what can we expect based off of what you've seen, Isaiah, from Turpin? He just seems smooth out there.
Yeah, he's very smooth in terms of his ability to actually receive the ball. And I don't think most people understand punt return is difficult. Kick return and punt return are two separate monsters. Kick return, you have all the time in the world to sit back there. You know you're going to receive it. You know you can set your blocks. Punt return, you're looking at the defense, trying to see, do you have time to actually catch it? Do you need to fair catch it? The ball is turning in the air. On TV, it looks like it's coming straight down, but it's actually curving. And he's been doing a great job of that. But one of the things I'm looking to see is how is he going to set his blocks? Is he going to be in unison with his actual return team to be able to be at the right angle, to set it at the right angle, make the first cut, and get vertical?
How important is it for him to make that first guy miss it? Is it a yard's difference there where if you make that first guy miss, you automatically got 4 yards? How does that work?
It's very important because you have to understand for every 1 second that goes by, every 1 second that goes by, that's 10 yards that somebody is eating up in terms of their coverage.
Yes.
So when you're going down there, it feels like they have all the time in the world. They don't. He makes that first guy miss. He's going to now get to his wall. The challenge, though, he has, because he is so capable with all the physical attributes he has. He's quick. He's fast. He's explosive. He's shifty. Guys that tend to have those characteristics tend to do too much.
Okay.
And when you do too much for that same reason, every 1 second he spins back there, that's 10 yards closer to coverage is getting to you.
First team all Big 12. Yeah. During his time at TCU as a returner, he is exceptionally smooth. John Fossil very excited about that. But we're getting a look at the defensive line now as we kind of look at what they're working on at the moment. They're on the far side of the field, but this is really interesting for Dan Quinn having a group as deep as he has this season because Mickey – he just added another toy in Anthony Barr at the second level, but really in front of him, he's got more talent to work with than ever before.
Oh, absolutely. I marked off my roster here, and I counted 12 guys with I think, a legitimate chance to make this team.
Wow.
And I don't think they're going to keep 12 guys. They might keep 10 at the most. It might be 9. So they've got some guys out there that are fighting for a roster spot, and we'll know more when they practice against Denver this coming week and when they play the game. Then you can get a better idea because they're not tackling out here.
Yeah.
And they're not going to tackle today. They're going to just thud up, just act like they're getting ready to make a tackle. So that'll be very telling on those guys.
Nate, how important is it to have a coach like Dan Quinn, who, yes, he does have a significant role in terms of this coaching staff, but also a guy who is so willing to be hands-on? I mean, you see him there. He's doing the snaps back and forth, having the edge rushers practice getting off the line of scrimmage, having a quick get-off to go try and find the quarterback or get in the backfield. How important is it to have a coach that's so hands-on with his guys?
He pays attention to the small details, that first step, that getting off the ball. After you get off the ball, what are you reading? Are you reading his feet? Charles Haley's he believes in reading feet. A lot of guys will look at the hips and see is a guy got loose hips or tight hips. It's a lot of things goes into those few seconds. And that's what makes these guys elite, because they're reading certain things that gives them an idea like, am I going to bull rush him? If I'm going to straight arm stiff him, I'm going to power, go into speed. And then it comes down, do you have hips?
It does come down to that.
And that's why coach is working with them to make sure that their hip flexion is right.
Talk about hips. One guy that has hips is Micah Parsons. He's not a part of this defensive line drill, but speaking of hands-on, George Edwards having a conversation with Micah in between drills, going back and forth, and Isaiah. I mean, this is kind of it's not just Dan Quinn that's hands-on. It's this entire defensive staff.
Yes.
it's a big reason about the way that they were able to turn things around last year.
Yeah, this entire staff, but especially this defensive staff, is stacked. These guys have so much knowledge, so much wisdom. They're hands-on. I mean, these are talking about guys that are legendary coaches. You're talking about guys that are legendary players, and they're all underneath the Dan Quinn umbrella. And they're all selfless, and they all want to make sure that they make contributions and deposits into all of these players. The other side of that is you have players that are willing to listen. You have guys that want that knowledge. They want to be a sponge and soak up that information. So it's awesome to have those resources, but the utilization of them and what these guys are doing is something totally different.
So are you telling me Micah Parsons not going to play special teams?
He might play running back. He's talking to Ezekiel Elliott and
well,
Skip
he
Pete.
wants to return kicks, by the way.
Not happening.
And I remember John Fossil last year when we asked him about him returning kicks. He said, yeah, he thinks he can do everything. He even wants to play quarterback. So that might get X'd out, huh?
Yeah, you want to see Micah Parsons back at quarterback? He's got the right number for it. That's quarterback
Hand
number.
it off to him, right?
If he's at quarterback, we have some big problems.
That would be a bad idea.
I say like this, fellas, when you have, speaking of the defensive coordinators, Al Harris, Witt, and all of these guys, Junior, these guys, man, you watch them practice and how they talk to the players, how they tell players exactly how to line up, what to look for, what's the weaknesses of the defense, and the routes that you can jump. I just watched the cornerback coach just go 30 minutes just telling, right here you can jump this, you can't jump that. You can play on this, you can't play on that. I mean, when you go into detail like that, that is tremendous. That's just feeding the player.
And this is a respect factor, too, right? And you know that as a former player, the respect that you have for your coach because of either his previous playing history or the guys that he's coached, right? The experience that they have, you have a respect for them. Now, you're supposed to have respect for all your coaches.
Right.
But as everything, there's levels. And there's definitely these guys have a great resources that they're utilizing right now.
Kind of playing off of that, we're getting a great look at Leighton Van Der Resch, who at this point in his career, he's had some ups, he's had some downs, but also he's a veteran heading into his second contract, just a one-year deal, but still a guy that Dallas is going to rely on to provide leadership at the second level with guys like Micah Parsons moving forward. Mickey, how much of a respect factor is there for Leighton Van Der Resch and what he could bring to a defense if he continues to stay healthy?
And all he's got to do is stay healthy, because if you looked at how he finished the season last year, it was strong. The last 4 games, the playoff game against San Francisco, he had 13 tackles. I counted up in his last 5 games, he had 30 tackles. And someone asked him during the offseason, what happened? What happened at the end of the season? Why did it look like you were playing better? And he said, that's what you get when you leave me on the field for the entire game. And I was like, oh, okay, touche. Put him out there, right? Yeah. And now the way they've been practicing, he's been out there even on the nickel.
He's a guy, man, that I think last year he found his confidence. We can sit over here, players, non-players, whatever, and say this kid lost a little something.
Sure.
But when you have a neck injury, it takes that extra year to get yourself right. We got great trainers who have helped him recover with the rehab. He's starting to stick his head in there a little bit better. He understands the defense a little bit better. And this is why we chose him in the first round a few years ago. Yeah. Because he was this big guy that we can even play in the nickel situations. And it's starting to show, man. And, I mean, he's back to that guy that's just bouncing around before practice. But it's before he used to be staring at just, like a deer in the headlights. He's back, man. And I hope he stays healthy.
We gonna get some wolf calls? Is that
I need a wolf call.
Can I get? Y'all want me to go?
I don't know, man. We got a mic on you. That might be a little loud. 350 career tackles. His first fully healthy season in nearly 3 years. I mean, there's a lot to build on for LVE. Here we go, looking at the defensive linemen again across the field, and we saw them practicing that get off a little bit more, and Dan Quinn having some hands on back and forth. There's a lot of youth up front for this defensive line, both on the edge and in the interior. I mean, you talk about the investment that they've made in the interior of that defensive line with Neville Gallimore, Digizua, Chauncey Goldstein, John Ridgway, Tristan Hill, all being drafted within the last 4 seasons.
Yes.
There's a lot of investment in that defensive line, and then you can almost add that all to the outside. How much are they going to rely, these young guys, to learn from DeMarcus Lawrence? And for DeMarcus Lawrence to step up and have a big year.
DeMarcus Lawrence is going to do a great job of leading these guys. But DeMarcus Lawrence, like most of our older guys, have to stay healthy and have to be in that room. But you know what, my friend, you got Dante Fowler, who's been on another level and who's played with some winning organizations. He's going to be able to teach these guys a few things, man. Chauncey Goldstein, all these guys. I mean, but where we're going to have to learn something big time is these tackles there. Those are the guys that Neville's going to have to step up.
Yeah.
The John Ridgeways, I hear good things about him. They want to get him in there early and often in the preseason. What can he learn from these veteran guys, man, and stand in your gap, making sure you're in the right place, knowing when to blow up the field and knowing when to hold your ground.
Isaiah, what are you wanting to see from the defensive tackles through the preseason and then, of course, into week one?
I want to see them consume people. I want to see them consume people, and I want to see them be aggressive. I want them to literally just take these offensive linemen, demand that that it requires two guys to stick them, and I just want to see exactly what they have going on in front, simply because of the fact 2 years ago we were in such a bad position. We were in such a bad position 2 years ago, and now it's totally been flipped on its head. You just heard Mickey talking about how there's 12 guys that seemingly are eligible to make this roster at that position, or at least on the defensive front. Now all of a sudden you have to try to chip that down. That was never a problem when we were talking about Dontari Poe, we were talking about Everson Griffin.
You know, and one of the things that's got to happen is those guys inside have to stay healthy. I think everybody forgets last year Neville Gallimore got hurt in the preseason. He had an elbow injury, and he only started 4 games at the end of the year, right? He's almost like an addition this year. And the other addition is Chauncey Goldstein. They've moved him from defensive end to defensive tackle. And he's big enough to play it now. He got his weight up to almost 280, and he'll be another 3 technique. So if they can get those 2 guys going, along with Osa and Carlos Watkins, they got a pretty good middle there, and we'll see if John Ridgeway can crack those top 4.
But see, the thing about what I'm looking at here, you counted 12 possible guys. They're not going to keep. I counted 13.
You got an extra one in there.
I got
an
extra guy. It's going to be very, very competitive. And during the preseason game, starting next week against Denver, these guys are going to have to be rotating. And they're going to have to, hey, this is our guy when we're in an even look. This is our guy when we're in an over and under look. So they got their hands full. And these guys are going to – this is the true competition of this team, is the interior of the defensive line.
Was talking with our defensive line coach, Adam Dirty, yesterday, and he even talked about how you want more of those players on your football team, but it also provides competition. It also provides big question marks and tough decisions along the way, and that's ultimately what they're having to deal with. They're having to sort through these defensive linemen, go back and forth on these young guys, what kind of investment they've made, and then ultimately make a decision on that moving forward. Now let's go back to special teams. I promise there's more to come. I mean, this is just the beginning of a 2-hour-long broadcast in terms of what we're going to see today. These are the early parts of practice where there's a lot of standing around. There's just some back and forth, some ball drills, some foundations, but we're taking a look at the kickoff here as well. And we'll get to see a couple guys return some kicks. Of course, not without contact. Or without any contact, I should say. They're not tackling. They're not bringing guys to the ground. It's what they call a touch-up, Nate.
Yeah.
I'm sure you had a touch-up or two back in your day, right?
Yeah, I did, man. That means we didn't have practice that day. Hey, but you know what? You know what, Kyle? If I can interpose right quick, like, I'm waiting on the first Mojo Moment.
How long do you think it's going to take for that?
I don't know.
I think it's coming up.
Kyle got the script, so I don't know.
I don't have the Mojo Moment. They don't even have that scripted out. But that's the thing. With the Mojo Moment, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's ultimately a high-intensity surprise. It's like a pop quiz.
Yes.
Ultimately, you take the Mojo Moment, the music comes on, it's the Sunday Night Football theme, blaring, it's time for a Mojo Moment, and you work from there into a high-intensity scenario. And the ones today, I'm just going to say, I do know what the Mojo Moment is. Okay. I just don't know when it'll be.
Okay.
It's going to be fun. It's not just kicking. It's not just late-game scenarios. It's going to be a high-intensity look.
I can't wait.
It's must-score touchdowns, so keep that in mind.
I'm looking forward to it.
This is really interesting. Well, I mean, we're taking a look at the special teams unit, the kickoff drills, and having Tony Pollard return a couple of these kicks. We didn't necessarily know if that was a possibility. John Fossil talked about losing CeeDee Lamb as a returner. You don't really want to see Trayvon Diggs out there as a returner as well. We thought Tony Pollard would be in that conversation, but you see him out there returning the kickoffs.
No, I want the ball in his hands.
Ooh.
I'm not taking him off kickoff return. He was awfully good last year.
Had a 100-yard return against the Raiders on
He needs
Thanksgiving.
to be out there. And, there's a couple guys back there that they're going to practice with. But Pollard showed you he can do it. Everybody wants him to get more touches. Well, it's not just touches in the backfield. It's touches as a wide receiver, and it's touches as a kickoff returner. And now the way to limit those touches is don't let the other team score, and then you don't have to return kicks.
I'm not against having TP back there as a kick returner, simply because of the fact the game has changed, Mick. There's not nearly as many kickoff returns as there once was.
Right.
Majority of them are going out the back of the end zone. So putting him out there, you're not at a high risk. And even if he does get the kickoff return, you have a system in place, and you have this thing schemed up where you have guys he can go back and follow. You don't just get free hits like you do on a punt return.
Yeah, he returned both kicks and punts during his time in Memphis. Last year, he had 17 returns for 489 yards. That's nearly 30 yards per return. And he had, of course, the 100-yard touchdown on Thanksgiving against Las Vegas. There you see Kevontae Turpin. He's also in that conversation. Mentioned him a little bit earlier when he was taking the punts. Could you see Turpin out there returning kicks as well, back and forth with Tony Pollard?
Absolutely. I see TP more as a better kickoff returner, and Turpin better as a punt returner. Simply because, like I said, punt return is literally you have to be quick. You have to be quick. You can't just be fast at punt return. Now, on kickoff return, you just have to make one cut and go. You're setting the blocks, you're putting your foot in the ground, and you're getting vertical. There's not as much shifty. You don't have to be as agile. So I think TP's better in that regard in terms of just being a straight line guy and being able to, as a running back, knowing how to set your blocks accordingly. And as a punt returner, Turpin, he has that shiftiness to him.
And the key thing is you got to catch the ball, the punt return, right?
That's a whole different thing.
And Pollard, they worked him a little bit last year in camp, and he was kind of shaky. What I liked about Turpin is you don't see a lot of stutter step. He judges the path of the ball, the flight of the ball, and he's right underneath it every time.
And believe me,
I like
Tony
that.
Pollard is 6 feet, 225 pounds. He may not.
Bigger talker.
Yeah, he may not look as big as Zeke, but he's big, and he'll be better for the kickoffs. And like you say, Turpin will be better for the punt return.
You want to see effortless returns. You want to see somebody that's not laboring when the ball's coming toward them, and Turpin's one of those guys. Pollard's like that too. Same thing, but even at times Pollard may have a hiccup there, here or there, but Turpin is the guy who's been more secure with reeling the ball in, and that's a huge thing to look at. We think. You're right.
That's USFL.
The lights don't come on yet.
That's the other level of play.
And also one of the other elements that we didn't bring up is on kickoff return, there's larger men running down the field.
Ooh.
They're substantially larger guys. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, as a former kick returner for the Cowboys, trust me, you're going to face the defensive linemen. You're going to see the DNs in there. You're going to see the big linebackers, right? And on punt coverage, typically you're dealing with linebackers. Typically, you have linebackers, you have receivers, you have guys of that
tight ends.
Yeah, tight ends. So it's a lot less impact, I guess you would see on a punt return than you would see on a kickoff return.
Yeah. So does that worry you with Turpin if he was to be put back there? It doesn't worry you as much. Oh, Mickey's going to get a football.
I got it.
Would it worry you as much with Turpin back there as a kickoff returner because of his size?
No, not at all. Because like I said, I would much rather have TP because if he's going to get hit, he's going to get hit by a guy that he's used to getting hit by versus a Turpin. If he gets hit by a 270-pound defensive end, I'm gonna have some questions.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got plenty
He's
of
going to have some questions too.
Plenty of questions surrounding this team. We're going to try and answer those as we continue on here over these next couple of minutes. Thank you very much, Mickey Spagnola. When we come back, we've got the newest member of DallasCowboys.com as the coverage of practice from Oxnard, California continues. look at the fans, nearly 3,000 filing in throughout this practice in Oxnard, California. It is a fantastic day, just under 80 degrees here on the West Coast in the River Ridge Sports Complex as we welcome you back to our coverage of Training Camp 2022 presented by American Airlines, again with Nate Newton, Isaiah Stanback, and we welcome to the desk the newest member of DallasCowboys.com, Mr. Patrick No C. Walker. Pat, good to have you, my friend.
Good as always to be with you guys, man. We're out here talking about the Cowboys and fantastic weather and good fan presence. It's going to be a fun day.
What would be, if you had to choose one position to look at, what would it be? What's your favorite position to watch?
My favorite position to watch is going to be the linebacker core.
Well, guess what? We're going to look at the linebacker
There you
core.
go. There's your segue.
This is just some fundamental drills. I thought you were going to say something else, and I was ready for you to say something else. I was just going to completely dismiss it and go to linebackers anyway.
Hey,
so
I have
I'm
to
glad
keep you on your toes.
I'm glad we figured it out back and forth. But glad to have you along. And kind of explain what we're looking at with this linebacker core and kind of the generalities of the position that we're going to see as we head into the 2022 season.
Well, the main thing is going to be how is Micah Parsons going to be utilized in 2022. Obviously, the Cowboys have been hell-bent on making sure that he remains versatile. That is his biggest tool in his arsenal, and that's why the Cowboys went ahead and brought in a guy like Anthony Barr. They're looking to keep Micah Parsons able to get after the opposing quarterback, but there will be times that he drops back in coverage as well. You've seen in 2021 his ability to cover. Go back and look at the film against the Los Angeles Chargers. Had a couple of very good PBUs there, but now with Anthony Barr in the fold, I'm curious as to what the percentage will be that you will see Micah Parsons drop back in coverage versus going after the quarterback, because you have Jabril Cox coming back on the field as well.
What would you like to see, Isaiah, in terms of Parsons?
I would love to see him more at the linebacker position. You got to understand, as great as he was last year, as explosive, as dynamic, all the words you want to apply to him, he was still playing out of his natural position. So I would love to see him play in the role that they drafted him in and then utilize his attributes when necessary to go out there and do something explosive. I don't want to be dependent on him to create a pass rush. I want to have that as an accessory.
Now, we've talked about Leighton Van Der Resch in this show. We've talked about Micah Parsons. Is Jabril Cox that third guy? I mean, I know they added Anthony Barr. He's actually walking his way out onto the field. He's not going to have pads on. Still working on the PUP list, but he kind of works his way out there as well.
That's a large human being.
He's a big dude.
Very.
That's a big dude. But what about Jabril Cox? Talk about big dude. 6'3", 235 pounds. I mean, a guy who was injured last year, tore his ACL in Week 8 against Minnesota. But he worked toward more playing time, says Mike McCarthy, prior to the injury. Has he been ready for that, Nate?
He came out the first 2 days and did well with no pass. Then he had a little tweak. And so Britt Brown took him and started rehabbing him again just to get the swelling out of his knee. And then that's when they decided, hey, and Barr decided, and they decided, the Cowboys, it was time to make this move. This kid has great promise. And as the year go on, they will begin to work him in. Barr, starter. But also Barr is the guy that's going to be a leader in that room and going to help the young guys like Jabril Cox. And believe it or not, he can help take Leighton Van Der Resch to another level.
And Micah.
Yes.
I was about to say, just the interchangeability between Van Der Resch and Parsons and Cox, and then you also throw Anthony Barr into that mix. It's really exciting for a defensive coordinator.
It absolutely is. You're talking about someone in Anthony Barr. You drop him into the water, and the tide rises all around him, and that's exactly what I anticipate happening with the Dallas Cowboys. And to answer your question about Jabril Cox, I was exceptionally high on Jabril Cox coming out of LSU, the 4th-round pick last season, but derailed by the torn ACL. It looks like he's going to be back in the mix here soon. He was participating in the walkthrough/mock game on Friday. He was out here doing individual linebacker drills. We'll see if he makes it to the team portion of practice, but the Cowboys are looking to make him a key player in their defense. So I don't think that, for those that are wondering, is Anthony Barr going to be a progress stopper for Cox? Absolutely not. Not in the way I envisioned Dan Quinn and George Edwards utilizing him.
Before we move off of the linebackers, what does the Anthony Barr addition mean for Luke Gifford, Isaiah? Is something that it's sending a message to Gifford? He's heading into his 4th season in the league. Is it a make it or break it type of season for Gifford?
I don't believe so. I think the signing of Anthony Barr is going to do just that, raise the bar of this entire position. And that's for every single one of those guys, simply being because he has done what they have not. he has been a Pro Bowler 4 times. This dude has had the C on his chest dang near for his entire career. So when you start looking at, how's it going to affect Gifford? Yeah, it's going to affect his playing time at the linebacker position, but we know Gifford's greatest contribution to this team has been on special teams. So Gifford then goes back to the same role he pretty much had last year. You're a depth guy. You're an emergency button, okay? You pull the doggone glass up, like you always say, Kyle, and you can punch that button, Gifford, because he understands the system. He understands his contributions, but his main contribution is always going to be on special teams.
I like that. And you know what? If he comes in and contributes on special teams and he's in a rotational sort of role for this team, you're going to be really happy with what you see from Luke Gifford, and we'll see what that linebacking core can do. Let's transition over to the cornerback position. We haven't talked about those guys just yet. Trayvon Diggs, of course, the leader in that clubhouse, 11 interceptions last year, first double-digit interception season seen in the entire NFL since Everson Walls did it in 1981. Nate, when you look at the play of Trayvon Diggs, he's had some criticism throughout camp so far. Are you worried about him heading into this third year in the NFL?
No. He's just got to learn to accept the pressure.
Yeah.
You have a new responsibility. You the man. You went out and got 10-plus interceptions. You are the man. So don't let a safety not being in the middle and a guy on a video show shake you. It's about maturity now.
You're talking about the one-on-one drill where Semi Fehoko beat Trayvon Diggs, a video that went viral.
Yeah, and so what you have to do, it's a few guys on the team that we'll get to later on. It's called maturity.
Ooh.
Grow up.
Say it again.
It's maturity. Grow up. You are the man. You paved this way. Now take this path.
And there's a gentleman by the name of Al Harris who just happens to know a little bit about that.
Right.
Legendary cornerback in the league and just happens to be their coach, their direct DB coach. And he got off in Trayvon's butt the other day when Trayvon was angry about that before the Twitterverse took over everything and started putting him on blast. And it just goes to show the leadership that they have in that room.
Yes.
They're not going to let just Trayvon react the way that he wants to because Al Harris is going to hold him to the highest standard.
And that's huge. Accountability is going to be huge here. And I love what you guys are touching on when it comes to Trayvon. If you wanted the crown, you wanted the throne.
Yes.
This is what comes with that. Okay. Heavy lies the crown. That is an accurate statement, and it's as old as civilization, and it applies here with Trayvon Diggs as well. Because Trayvon Diggs, 11 interceptions. You want quarterbacks to fear you. You want to get that presence out there, and now all eyes on you are on you for 2022 to see if you can equal or exceed what you did last season. But then adding to that, you yourself, Trayvon, said when we asked what was his goal for this season, he said to beat my 11. Okay, you're taking the crown. I believe he has the skill set to beat 11 interceptions. I do believe that. I agree with Al Harris when we asked Al that yesterday. But at the same time, you have to be able to cope with the pressure, and that does go to maturity, like Big Nate said.
There was a little bit of a target on his back last year at times. He was a second-round pick, second-year guy who came in and blew up. He had a phenomenal year. Oh, wow, he's actually throwing at the moment to Kelvin Joseph, a fellow second-round pick who has a little pressure in his second year.
Just a little.
He doesn't have the target on his back that Trayvon Diggs has at the moment, like after the 11 interceptions and going into this year. But there's a target on Kelvin Joseph's back to produce. How much is that pressure? How heavy is that pressure, Isaiah?
It's about as heavy as it gets for Kelvin Joseph. And not only because of where he was drafted at, there's the pressures that come along with that, but also because of the things that he was unfortunately involved in this past offseason, the distractions that were there. He has a lot to show to this team. He has a lot to show to this entire organization that he is not only willing and able to take over at that role in terms of making that big jump, that second-year leap as a defensive back in this league, but also to put all that other mess behind and let that overshadow the things that took place this offseason.
Shortly after that incident happened off the field, he came in and he was 100% on his off-season workouts.
Yep.
That is the first step.
Yep.
Now the second step is make sure you get with Bones Foster and you make sure you're on every special team. And you make sure you show the team that you're dedicated while you're competing for that outside or maybe that inside slot position. And your total focus, this is one time you have to go to family and say, family, I need for y'all to get behind me and push me forward towards these Cowboys so I can make sure we all prosper.
With Kelvin Joseph in the position that he's in right now, he's playing for the special teams reps. He's also playing for a rotational purpose at the cornerback position. But how tough is that to kind of sort out, Patrick, when you've got guys in front of him like Anthony Brown with Jordan Lewis that had career years in 2021. Now they've got to find a way to put a second-round pick into the rotation, but it's hard to do that because both of those guys have been playing really well.
It's going to be very difficult. Anthony Brown is having a fantastic training camp.
Great camp.
He's coming off of a hot year, like you said. Jordan Lewis, he's also having a strong camp as well. And you look at those veterans, you have your top three. If you want to pencil them in right now, you can say Trayvon, Jordan Lewis in the slot, and Anthony Brown opposite Trayvon Diggs. The question is, how does it shake out behind those three? You look at up-and-comers like Al Harris is speaking very, very highly of a guy like Deron Bland, for example. Nashawn Wright, he's using his length to be very disruptive here. Those are also young guys who are looking to make an impact on special teams as well. Kelvin Joseph, being a former second-round pick and having the unfortunate offseason that he has that much more pressure to come into this training camp and not only show that he has full commitment to being an NFL player and an NFL starter, but these young guys, they're not sitting back waiting for Kelvin Joseph to prove himself. They're trying to prove themselves every single day, and they're having solid camps in doing so.
And you just named 5 defensive backs, 5 cornerbacks specifically that Al Harris loves.
Yes.
And guys that are making plays, guys that are coming off of good years, guys that have already had an impact in this NFL and already core special teamers. That's one of the key things Nate was just touching on. And not only that, the utilization of the safety position in this scheme will affect the numbers that are going to go onto the active roster. Believe that.
Sometime as a high draft pick, and I always notice this because I didn't get drafted, they're going to give you every opportunity. And it's up to you to put yourself and take advantage of those opportunities.
Taking advantage of the opportunities. That's kind of what Jaron Kearse did last year whenever he was a safety coming in his 5th season in the NFL, and he turns around, 6th season in the NFL after spending 5 seasons as a journeyman special teams player. And then he turns around, and guess what? He had the most tackles by a safety since 2014. I mean, 92 tackles, 9 tackles for loss. He had a sack, 2 interceptions. All 4 of those numbers were career highs for Jaron Kearse. What's his encore look like, Patrick?
I think Jaron Kearse can take a step up. This is going to be his second off-season program under Dan Quinn. I think that only helps him do better, helps put him in a position to succeed. I think that he still feels like there's a chip on his shoulder, and that goes to the mentality and the mental processing of the position at safety. I love how Jaron Kearse carries himself. Even after now re-signing with the Cowboys, he's not taking a day off. He's not taking a step off, not taking a rep off. He is in there as intense every single play, and that is something that's going to rub off on some of these other safeties, like the young guy, Marquise Bell, undrafted free agent out of FAMU, getting high marks from Mike McCarthy, Dan Quinn, and basically any coach and player you ask about him. And then you talk to McCarthy, and he says he's looking to utilize Marquise Bell as that same hybrid role behind Jaron Kearse. There's a little bit of more added motivation. If you're a veteran, you're saying, hey, this young guy, he's coming out here, he's having a really good camp, and now I see my coaches saying, hey, they're going to kind of use him in my lane. I need to make sure that I stay sharp going forward, and I think Jaron Kearse will.
You know, this, just like the defensive line, this thing is loaded. You look down here, you just can't say this is the guy, this is the guy.
Right.
As you get past Diggs, Brown, and J. Lou, you saying who's who. It's like the chances they going to get, they got to understand that when they go to Denver next week, those 2 practices are key. And when you get in the game in the second half, or maybe from the middle of the second quarter on, that you have to really, really go at it. And I see you tapping his Deron Bland, the young guy there. You loving that? Speak on it.
I was kind of going into. They've got 1 practice at Denver. Right. They have 2 practice at the Chargers. You're going to see the young guys in the preseason games. You're going to see the Deron Blands. You're going to see the Isaac Taylor Stewarts, the Tyler Coyles that are on this roster. Israel Mukwamu at the safety position. Going to see a lot of time. But Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, they may not see a ton of time in the preseason.
The more you guys talk about this, the more I want the people at home to understand how this thing comes down to a numbers game.
Lay it out there.
These doggone numbers. Okay, so 53, yes?
53-man roster. Okay, you get to protect 2 guys off the practice squad.
All right, so 3 specialists, yes?
Yes.
Okay, kicker, punter, long snapper, correct?
Correct?
Okay, so we're down to 50 guys, correct?
Yes.
Right. Okay, so you take 25 guys on defense. Let's just go split it right down the middle. 25 guys on defense. How many linemen did Mickey say?
He had 12. Nate had 13.
But 8 to 9 guys will make it, yes?
That's right.
So that's 9
usually.
of your 25 gone.
Right.
Usually it's 10, so we'll say 10.
Call it 10. All right, so you
Usually
got 15
it's like
guys
4
left.
and 6, 5 and 5, something like that.
There we go. You got 15 guys left, okay? How many linebackers, huh, Nate?
4,
5.
5.
Call it 5.
Probably with special teams, you would probably say 5.
So now we're down to 10. Now we're down to 10 guys. Okay? How many safeties? With being that this defense uses three top, what I call bottle top type defense times. So how many safeties you keep?
5.
Five safeties?
You got to have 5.
Yeah, because
So
we got
now-
a big safety.
So now, but we just named
exactly.
5 cornerbacks.
You did.
You just named 5
did.
cornerbacks.
I named 3.
Okay, so we got
I'll
Jordan.
say, I would say 6 corners because you got to throw C.J. Goodwin into that
so
mix.
now you're down
from
to
a
4
special
safeties.
team standpoint.
Special teams.
So now you're down to 4 safeties.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My boy
This is a-
Bell
this is
making
a-
the team.
This is
There
a
you
tough
go.
decision.
There you
I
go.
want people to understand how this thing breaks down. You got 3 safeties that you're going to play inside in the game,
Yes.
and then you got
Yes.
one guy that you have in reserve. When you start looking at this cornerback position, you got Jordan Lewis, Anthony Brown, Trayvon Diggs. Those guys are pretty much locks. Those guys are going to be there. So that's 3 of your 5 to 6 DBs. Nashawn Wright most likely going to be there. Why? Because he's a core special teamer for Bones Fossil. And then you start looking around Bland. Guess what? He got drafted. He's not going anywhere.
Right.
So now you got one available spot.
What about Donovan Wilson, though, in that mix, too? Because we talked about it all throughout the early first week of camp. The best type of ability is availability. And he wasn't available last year. I mean, you even talk about going back to when he was drafted back in 2019, a 6th-round pick. He spent time on and off the IR list last year. He had shoulder injury. He had a chest injury. He still came in, had 29 tackles, but he only played in 9 games. Where does he fit if you have a Curse, if you have a Hooker, and Israel Mukwamu, who you're really excited about? That's a lot going on at the moment.
I think he has to be a part of this defense simply because of the fact that when he was healthy, the splash that he made.
Yes.
It wasn't just, who's that guy out there?
Yes.
Or it wasn't just a guy on the field running around playing
was
every
the dude.
position,
Correct.
not
Right,
making
right.
mistakes. He was running around trying to destroy and decapitate people. And that's one aspect of this game that you need somebody to bring to the defense.
enforcer.
You got to have the enforcer.
But the thing is, I understand the draft picks, but when you're looking at this defense, it's going to be the veteran guys. I mean, we're going to have to find the practice squad for a lot of these guys because it is a team that know what it's doing going into its second year. So I'm with y'all. How do you choose these guys? A lot of these guys are going to be, a lot of these young guys going to be practice squad guys, because they are a veteran-laden team, especially in that secondary.
And it's a great problem to have, like we've all talked about before.
Sure.
But at the same time, the Cowboys have to be smart in which players they decide to roll the dice on
Right.
in final roster cutdowns,
Yes.
because some of these guys who are going to be released are going to get picked up by one of the other 31 teams. They may not end back up on the Cowboys practice squad. And kind of circling back to Donovan Wilson, I think Donovan Wilson is a player you have to have on this team. Yes, his availability was an issue last season, but the season prior, he was one of your breakout guys. Before Trayvon Diggs was Trayvon Diggs, Donovan Wilson stepped in as an unheralded guy at the safety
Right.
position, and he started to become the definitive safety for the Cowboys. The availability issues led to the signing of Malik Hooker, so forth and so on. And yes, now Malik Hooker is kind of ascended beyond where Donovan Wilson is, but that, in my opinion, that does not make Donovan Wilson instantly disposable for 2022.
That may be a battle that we're not talking about enough, is Donovan Wilson versus Malik Hooker for that free safety spot. Now, Wilson's more of a downhill player. He's more of a guy that you could put in the box or maybe even put him over the top, and then he's more of a disguised look. Whereas Malik Hooker's a true free, and then you've got Jabril Cox, who's a true strong safety. There's multiple ways you could play it because Donovan Wilson kind of fits in the middle. I agree with you in the fact that he needs to be on the roster because you go back to 2020, the season that you guys are talking about, 72 tackles. He forced 3 turnovers. Most of that was late in the season when he was the best player on the defense.
Absolutely.
And
Keep that in mind.
And the best thing going forward is we do have more practices. We do have 3 preseason games. And, fellas, who plays will make this team. Understand?
Got a
Here we
Mojo
go.
moment.
Here we go.
We got
There
a
it is.
Mojo moment.
All right, everybody. So before we go to our next break, we've got the Mojo Moment. This is going to be fun. I'm going to set things up for you here. There's a couple of times in this practice where we will see this. The music is blaring on the far side of the field. Everybody moves into one scenario. That scenario today, ones versus ones, communication breakdown. It means basically it's all on the field. Everything is called out on the field. There's a minute and 2 seconds on the clock. They start at the 48-yard line. Offense has no timeouts, and they must score a touchdown and kick the extra point. So keep that in mind. There is a lot going on here. We're going to start with the first-team offense. You see a bunch of guys out there, offensive line-wise. You've got Tyler Biotish, Connor McGovern, Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, and Terrence Steele. It'll be Dak Prescott at quarterback. That first-team look, This is going to be fun, Isaiah.
Man, and to talk about what we were just referring to, you have all three safeties out there, Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, and Jabril Cox. So that was very interesting to kick this thing off already.
All right, the wide receivers, Dalton Schultz, C.D. Lamb, Jalen Tolbert out there, Trayvon Diggs on defense, and it's Dak with a three-step drop, avoids the pressure off the edge. Almost intercepted by Leighton Van Der Resch, but it's Jabril Cox who ends up with the interception. He's going to take it all the way back.
It's a pick six.
What about the defense playing strong? It was Van Der Resch who got his first hand on it, and then it tipped around to Cox.
This goes back to the first segment that we had when these guys were doing the distraction drills, and I mentioned how coaches taking all the guys, no matter offense or defense, if you have an opportunity to get your hand on the ball, they want you to be used to it. They want them to be comfortable. They don't want this to be an odd thing that they come to their hands and like, what the heck is this? Van Der Resch got his hands on the ball, should have picked it, got tipped twice, ended up in Jabril Cox's hands. That's a pick six, baby.
But what
they're also talking about how Micah Parsons could also see that he was in the backfield too. I mean, every big name on that defense had something to do with that play. That was a massive look on the first try from the line of scrimmage. Here's the twos going with Cooper Rush.
Oh.
And near side, that one is looks like it's complete.
It was complete.
Incomplete is what they'll say.
It was a bad ball by Cooper Rush. He has to put that ball to the sideline. It was an out route, and Noah Brown did a good job running a solid route. It just didn't get pushed to the side.
Terrell Basham got on the inside of the tackle and got good pressure.
Deep down the Noah Brown on the sideline.
And look who it is.
What a grab from Brown.
Again.
And look who it is.
Noah Brown on Deshaun Wright down the near sideline with a heck of a grab. Now it's a hurry up to the line of scrimmage. Remember, there are no timeouts left in this drill. Got to go to the end zone. Rush on the out route. Malik Davis with the reception.
That's a really good grab by Malik Davis. He checked high. The coverage carried down the field. He came down immediately to his check down route. Ran a good route. One on the linebacker. Put it on his outside shoulder. Completion. You got a little bit of time to work with here because now you're inside the 10-yard line or inside the 15-yard line rather. That's the 10. Inside the 10, you have the clock stopped. You can kind of reset here. Cooper Rush doing a nice job, Patrick.
Cooper Rush is moving the team down the field at the moment. He had that errant throw that was incomplete to Noah Brown, but he goes right back to Noah Brown, and Brown, who's having a very consistent camp, he rewards him on the very next play, helps set up this drive. Look at Marquise Bell, your guy, Nate, up at the second level. Here's Cooper Rush. Thought about going to the corner. Instead, he goes underneath again to Malik Davis. Right at the 1-yard line, he's been tacked up, but it might have been a sack in the backfield too. I mean, there were a couple guys back there. Hurry up to the line of scrimmage.
Left tackle
ball is at left tackle. Here's Rush back of the end zone, trying to find Fehoko as time expires, and they don't complete the drill. The buzzer went off just before that ball hit the ground.
12-0 defense. and just being honest, 12-0 defense.
The thing about Cooper Rush is he had a couple of very good throws on that drive, but a couple of errant. We just saw one that was an overthrow that had a shot at least at being a back corner touchdown. But Cooper Rush, quiet as it's kept, he's being challenged and pushed by Will Grier at that backup quarterback role.
Looks like they're going to give him another shot at this. See exactly what it is. They're going to say the clock stopped, and then they're going to say that there was a second left on the clock here. So this is a last opportunity for a score.
We got Osa, Neville, and Sam in.
Yeah.
Rush, quick back foot throw to Vasher. Nothing there.
Bad ball, yeah. And it seems like when Cooper Rush is in the game, as from what I've seen this week at camp, it's almost rushed. A lot of the decisions that he's making are either predetermined decisions, but when he actually has to go through his reads, he seems a little bit flustered. And when you talked about, Pat, as far as Will Grier pushing him at the position, that poise is something we're going to have to pay a lot of attention to in these preseason games.
So now they're going back to the first team. Isaiah, are you a little bit concerned with the throw Dak Prescott made on the first play?
Nah, this is the first time Dak's been out here in camp with all these people out here, man. It's a little jitter. Just because he's QB1 doesn't mean he doesn't get nervous.
I don't know, man. This is 3,000 people. I don't know if you can get nervous with 3,000 people in the middle of practice.
I'm more impressed with LVE creating the tip drill that led to the interception.
Great point.
Fuller on stand-up.
3-step drop for Dak, throwing over the middle of the field. That went off balance to Tolbert.
Yeah, I saw the stunt. But you know what's amazing? I'm looking to receive. This is the consistency we're looking for. The routes being correct, the quarterback getting there. And this is why we got to get 2 or 3 guys in there so we can see our quarterback get some consistency.
DeMarcus Lawrence, Donovan Wilson, Jabril Cox, Malik Hooker, Anthony Brown, Jordan Lewis on defense. The receivers are C.D. Lamb, Jalen Tolbert. And you got Dennis Houston out there as well. Prescott going to Houston, covered by Diggs, and Houston reeled that ball in.
Dennis Houston,
Yes, he
a
did.
name to watch, a name that we continuously put out there and tell everyone to keep an eye on. Dennis Houston continues to build chemistry with Dak Prescott.
Going back that direction. Got it again.
I need people to understand that is Dennis Houston going against Trayvon Diggs. Back-to-back,
Yes.
tight windows, great balls by Dak, great routes by Houston, 2 completions in a row.
Keep an eye on Micah Parsons, too. He has had his way with Terrence Steele over these last couple reps. Wide open to Tony Pollard on the sideline. Gets out of bounds before Wilson can close it off.
And if we can see a lot more of that this year right here, because he's a creator, as my man Isaiah would call it.
He is. And you get
Yeah.
him out in space, and he could be an absolute terror.
Yes. Right now, the offense has found his rhythm, man. I got Connor McGovern, 63, our center.
Yeah, Tyler Biotish.
Yes. These are the 2 guys I'm watching because sometimes they can get pushed into the backfield.
From about the 13-yard line.
Now you got Diggs on the inside. This is all man-to-man coverage right now.
He's on Tolbert. Parsons off the field as now Dalton Schultz reels it in.
I look for him to have 100 catches this year. Is that unrealistic?
No, not at
No.
all.
I
Not at all.
don't think it's unrealistic.
Flat.
There's Pollard again, bobbled it, but he would have been hit pretty hard by Jalen Curse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's one of the
pretty
things.
hard.
That's one of the things I'm looking for Dak. I know a lot of
Right.
people kind of give him a pass simply because of the fact he's QB1, but balls like that have to get pushed to the sideline to protect your players.
Prescott having to vacate the
I like
pocket.
this.
I
Took it all the way.
There we go.
I like this.
There we go. There's the leg science. That's something that Dak Prescott admittedly did not have in his arsenal in 2021 as he was mentally trying to move past the hurdle of what happened to him with the fractured ankle. But now he promised that he's in the best shape of his life. He promised that he's going to utilize his legs more. If there's green in front of him, he's going to take off and eat it up. And this is what he just did. So if the Cowboys can get more of that from Dak Prescott in 2022, it adds another dimension that has to be defended by the opposition.
That's my 2 year. That's my baby Dak. 2 years when he was
That's
a
my
rookie.
quarterback.
Yeah, I'm saying when his
That's my
rookie year,
quarterback.
his first 2 years, that is the Dak that we fell
That's
in
the
love.
Mississippi
I see
State.
tears
You know,
streaming down Nate Newton's face
Yeah.
as he
See, but
says
Nate,
that.
unfortunately, I have to bring you down a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Yes, sir.
Because as great as that play was, what happens after you score a touchdown?
Got to kick the extra point.
Stop, man.
And guess what?
Don't do that,
Guess what?
Isaiah.
Guess what?
Party pooper.
Not only is it an extra point, they gave excessive celebration on the PAT, so it's a long extra point, and he missed it to the right. We're going to overtime in this scenario.
Nate?
Had one shot at it.
This is a problem, and I don't say that to be funny. I don't say that to really be somber,
No,
but this
'cause
is a
it's not.
reality for the Dallas Cowboys right now. This is something that did not get addressed. Obviously, they moved on from their kicker last year, right? They moved on from Greg DeLay. Greg Zuerlein was a veteran.
Yeah.
He's been a guy. He might not have been as exceptional as he once was, but you understood what you were getting with him. Now you're stepping into a situation for every time you step on the field, it's a question mark.
Here's Jonathan Garibay doing another extra point, or trying another extra point, I should say. That one is short.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that landed somewhere in Nevada.
Scored 12-6 defense, man.
Yeah, that landed somewhere in
Nate,
Nevada.
Nate, as an offensive line,
We got to wrap up and go to break. Patrick, thank you so much. When we come back, more team drills here from Oxnard. Back here from Oxnard, California, just finishing up our first Mojo Moment of practice. We are officially into hour number 2 of coverage of Training Camp 2022, presented by American Airlines. Nate Newton, Isaiah Stanback. We had Mickey Spagnola. We had Patrick Walker. And now we welcome Rob Phillips to the desk. Rob, how's it going?
Island.
Doing good. I had lunch with Isaiah and Nate yesterday, and I'll talk on this set. But I like just sitting back and listen to Nate and Isaiah. It's just pure knowledge.
Well,
so
we
I'm
want
try
your
to interject
insight
when I can.
You're an expert, and
Yeah.
we want your insight just as much as we hear from these guys. And let's start things off here. This is run and play action heavy team drills early on. And Rob, there's been an added physicality in this camp, and maybe that's an initiative started by Mike McCarthy talking about how he wants to see this team play with some toughness throughout the season. Why is that so big?
Well, he always talks about play style. He says that all the time, play style, and there's a line to it, right? Because he wants his team to be aggressive and play physical, like you're saying, Kyle, but they have to not cross the line with the penalties that they had last year. So you got Isaiah and Nate, no, you got to find a balance. You got to play physical, you got to play tough, but you cannot cost yourself with yardage. And they had that in some key situations last year, especially pre-snap. But you only have so many of these padded practices, so you got to take advantage of the physical work that you got.
I have a question for you, Rob P. You get rid of a very aggressive offensive lineman in that of such of Connor Williams. You go out and you draft another very aggressive type of run, kind of ground.
Right.
What do you call him? Road
grader.
Road grader. Okay,
Road
and
grader.
Tyler Smith. What do you see as the difference between the two of those players?
Well, that's a great question. I think Tyler Smith has a chance to be more physical than Connor Williams. And you're right that his aggressiveness would work against him with those penalties that he had. And that was something that Tyler Smith had to deal with at Tulsa in college. That was maybe one thing that really stood out that he's got to work on going to the next level. But I think in terms of a strong player at the point of attack, and Nate can speak to this better than I can, they feel like he's a great fit inside because of his physicality in the run game and maybe moving people off the ball a little bit better than Connor Williams.
It's simple as this right here. One guy had to work in the weight room to get strong in Connor. And this guy just naturally, he was born like that, just strong.
Yeah.
And so every time he lift a weight, he's get stronger. He's a little bit more physical because he's a little bit more nastier. Connor had to build himself into that type of guy. This guy is built like that coming out of our college.
So how do you harness that great attribute of being aggressive in nature? You wanted to drive guys into the ground, wanted to be physical. How do you harness that in a young player? Obviously, people feel as if Connor Williams was a failed kind of mission in that regard. How do you now take a Tyler Smith who has those same attributes and now harness it for a positive to your advantage?
Just work, technique. He got to watch film of himself. He's got to always be critiquing himself. But then when he get on the field, he have to let loose. He have to believe that the work he's done during his offseason and that he's done during his training camp will suffice to help him keep his hands inside, to help him finish guys. And you know what? Just stay into that playbook so you'll feel free to just run and play football.
And offensive line coach Joe Philbin said yesterday they're still in sort of this install phase. So they feel like once they get out of that, he's going to be able to play just more football and work on refining his technique and not be thinking so much out there. One thing, in addition to his strength, guys, that he said jumped off the tape about Tyler Smith is his quickness off the snap. For a big man who's about 325 pounds, he moves really well, Nate.
When he's free, you can see it as when he's practicing, he's the last off the ball because he may be thinking about a play. But when he's confident about a play, I've seen him dump Tristan Hill. I've seen him dump a few linebackers. I've seen him take advantage of some guys. He changed the way Tristan Hill practiced after that. Tristan Hill has been on fire these last few practices because he got dumped on his head.
We're not going to talk about that last play because I don't want anybody from coaching to get upset about it. So we're not going to talk about what just happened on that play.
What just happened?
No, we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about it. It's like Fight Club. Dan Quinn was talking about it the other day. Yeah, no, we're not talking about it. Yeah. That's the thing, though, is there's going to be different aspects of this defense that's more confident than the offense right now. Tyler Smith's not the case. He has come in and he has lived up to the moment. We've seen him kind of interchange with the first team. He's been back and forth. Connor McGovern was in with the second team a little bit ago. Now you see Tyler Smith out there as well. So keep that in mind when you have a rookie of that caliber, of that strength, Nate. I mean, coming in and having the confidence he does is huge.
Right. I agree with you 100%. And just the more he studied, the more he worked his technique. And that is big more than anything right now, is for him to come in, get out here early, work his technique, stay a little later, work his technique, man, and take advantage of it. They've given him the reps at one position. They're not moving him around at tackle. They got him at that left guard. Some days he get more of the reps than Connor, and something like today, I think Connor's starting every position, every period as the starter, but he's getting enough work in there because this defensive line is deep.
Yeah, it's Connor McGovern in there at left guard at the moment with the ones.
Do you think that's the right move, Nate, for Tyler Smith? Just keep him at guard? Because they do have question marks about who's the swing tackle going to be, but they also don't want to overload a young guy at two positions, right?
He is your left guard. When we just talked about it earlier, if he's thinking if he's thinking at left guard, if you put him at left tackle, he's gonna be really thinking and not moving. Yeah. Because one thing I watched about him, sometimes he'll get lazy with his feet because his upper body is so massively strong.
Let's take a look at Will Greer here as he takes some snaps behind center, under center, and there's the defensive line again, just very strong up front and doing a really nice job. But let's talk about Will Greer. Is this more of a quarterback competition, Rob, than maybe we anticipated heading into training camp?
Yeah, Mike McCarthy was asked that today. I don't know if he gave a direct answer to it, because they have a lot of confidence in Cooper Rush. Obviously went and won a game for him at Minnesota last year. But, hey, Will Greer is getting splitting second-team reps for a reason. They like him. He was claimed off waivers last September, spent the season trying to get familiar with the system. Isaiah, you know about that, going to a different team, and that's a process. But he was a third-round draft pick a few years ago for a reason. And you see the command out here. He's got command. He was always an accurate quarterback coming out of college, and you can see that here. He's putting some balls right where only the receiver can get it. And this is healthy. There's no problem with having a couple guys competing for that number 2 job.
No, I totally agree with that. I think it's important that you have competition behind QB1. But, Mike Davis is doing a great job out here taking some of these rips with Rico Dowdle being
Malik
out.
Davis.
Oh, sorry, Malik Davis. Is doing a great job getting some reps here with Rico Dowdle out. But I do have some concerns, you guys. I have some concerns.
What's your concern?
Yeah, this offense likes to run the ball out of a 2 tight end set. Right? Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Like to run it, but I'm looking at 2 tight ends in Jeremy Sprinkle, and Jake Ferguson, this year's draft pick they're sitting back here where we can see their backs of their numbers. They're not in practice right now. How important is it for –
Oh, wow. What a snag on the sideline. Big hit in the final part of that practice. Noah Brown went up, elevated to get that ball, and brought it back down. Sorry to cut you off there, Isaiah. That was a phenomenal play over the top of a defender at the same time.
No, that was a heck of a play by that man. And running a play-action drill here. But I'm concerned because Jake Ferguson – there was a lot of question marks in regards to his role the reason why they drafted him, right, Rob? Yeah. And I know for the Cowboys Nation, they expect him to come in and be that extra guy in the hip pocket of Schultz that's going to help in the run game, right? Be that blocking tight end in the passing game. All of a sudden, he's missing these first couple weeks of camp. How is that going to affect this team's development on that side of the ball?
That's a great question because there's, like I mentioned at the top, there's only so many practices that he's going to get in pads to adjust to that physicality and then the preseason games. And we'll see what his status is going forward. It sounded like maybe next week he could be back when they go to Denver for some practices in the game. But, yeah, I mean, you can't replicate that stuff. And then once you get into the regular season, they're going to scale back some of that. So for a young guy, this is so, so valuable. And you're right. They need that improvement in space, blocking in the run game at that tight end position at the point of attack.
Because if we're going to take advantage of who Tony is, Pollard, we need tight ends. You don't have to be a great blocker, but if you can just hold for a split second or a second or two, we can get this guy outside and we can really get the value out of Tony Pollard. We need for Jake Ferguson to be that player he was at Wisconsin. He got to get himself healthy, so availability is the best deal here for him. He needs to suck it up and let's go.
Ooh. First team back out there is you've got a couple guys working, a little read option. Now Dak's taking it himself. I like the sight of a read option there, Isaiah. You know how bad, on Talking Cowboys, we talk about it all the time.
I like the sight of number 4 running the
ball
field.
And with some confidence, too.
He's been so hesitant to do so, and then coming back off of the ankle injury, they didn't want him getting out the pocket for any reason.
Sure.
They much rather him throw the ball on the ground. So it's very encouraging to see his confidence level going into this season and his willingness to go past the line of scrimmage.
That first down, it hurt him a lot last year when it was 2 to 3 yards to be made. And he didn't do that. He threw the ball, mid-range, and we missed a lot of those. That third down percentage just goes up like you wouldn't believe when he runs the ball instinctively.
You're so right, Nate. And also the red zone. He has been such a weapon in the red zone, working that read option with Zeke or Pollard, just that threat inside the 20, inside the 10, inside the 5. That is huge for this offense to have that versatility.
Dak having a nice play on the opposite side with the running the football, but then he turns around. Trayvon Diggs has made a couple plays here over these last couple of reps. Had one down the field where he almost had an interception. He had another one where he batted down the football. A couple different things to look at whenever it comes to cornerback one.
Just when you have a young guy like Houston come in.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yep.
He's like, you know what, let me pick up my game. You know what? These young guys trying to make a name. I'm serious. As a veteran, you see a young guy, you don't take him, you take him for granted.
Sure.
But all of a sudden, a couple of quick moves, and he got that ball in his hand, you're like, let me turn it up. Let me be who people know me to be.
And why is that? Why is that something that's offensive as a defensive back? Cornerbacks, I don't know for people out there, cornerbacks are very prideful.
Yes, they are.
Very prideful. They don't want anybody talking mess about them. They feel as if nobody can make a completion. So when Dak Prescott goes back-to-back to the doggone rookie and he gets 2 completions on you, you're going to feel some type of way about it.
Yes, you are.
And he's trying to take advantage against some of the other guys on the roster as well. Here you go again, working to the left side of the field. There you see some C.D. Lamb shiftiness. Goodness gracious, he is tough to bring down. He's as slippery as they come, and you see a great look at it there, Rob.
That's some yak right there. He's one of the best. It's the yards after catch. He is one of the best in the league at doing that. And if you see more Tony Pollard this year in the kind of the same role, that's where you can create some of these chunk plays. I mean, the offense in the NFL is based off of chunk plays, explosive plays that get your offense in the scoring position. They've got to do more of that next season.
Creator. We have a few creators on this team, brother, and I love it to death.
Who you think's the biggest creator on this team, Nate?
I don't know. They need to go to T.J. Vasher just to see it, make sure he's one of those creators.
Little 5-wide look here for Dak Prescott. Again, the defensive line giving fits right back behind. He finds Tony Pollard, but that might have been a moot point, honestly, because that defensive line collapsed that pocket significantly early on.
And that has been our issue since the first day they put on pass. Our defensive line has just been blowing holes through our offensive line, and out of 20 plays, our offensive line as a whole may block 9 of them correctly. But other than that, the other 10 or 15, the guys are just leaking in. They just got to clean up the leakage, and give the quarterback a chance to get the ball, or give the running back a chance to make some positive yardage. And that just happened with Coach Quinn and his defense in his second year, and everybody's on the same page.
One thing that might be looked over, Rob P., is the ability, especially with the signing of Anthony Barr, how that affects Micah Parsons. That allows Micah Parsons to take himself in a defensive end position, go back to the linebacker position. When you have a secondary that's creating turnovers the way in which the Dallas Cowboys did last year, all of a sudden receivers aren't open. So when receivers aren't open, you have to go down as a quarterback to your checkdowns. Mm-hmm. Well, when your checkdowns are typically your running backs or linebackers underneath 5 yards. And you have opportunity for Micah Parsons now to be at that second level, being there waiting for those guys to come into his arms.
Absolutely.
With the twos in really quickly, Rob, with the twos in, you just saw that same sort of deal, but it was Malik Jefferson coming over from the second level. Really nice play from Jefferson before you continue.
Yeah, that's what they're building on this defense with Dan Quinn is versatility. They've got guys who can rush, guys who can line up with their hand in the ground, play in space, like you said, with Anthony Barr, Micah Parsons, move them all over the field. Young defensive linemen who can play everywhere, whether it's Chauncey Goldstein, whether it's Sam Williams maybe moving inside on occasion. Even DeMarcus Lawrence was playing tackle last year. So they're creating, it's not positionless, but it's a lot of versatility on this defensive front.
That was Sam Williams that got in there that time. Fantastic play. I mean, the Ole Miss rookie, he brings a lot of excitement as well coming off the edge that time.
I tell you what, man, Leon Lett love him. And, what they're working on, they say we're going to limit a lot of his asking him to be deep into the playbook. They just want him to do like 4 or 5 things great, and that's mainly get after the pass on third down and nickel situations. So they're trying to keep it simple for him early here in camp, and they'll let him grow as the season go on because he's a great athlete, and they say he's and he got good hips. When I saw him on film, he had great hips. But Cat said they're working on that, even getting his hips even more flexible.
Rob, when you think of, you've been around for a minute, and you've seen a lot of guys come in and out this system. Sam Williams, who does he remind you of?
Oh my gosh! You know what? I'm not saying he's Micah Parsons, but I'm trying to think of a recent guy.
They're comparable.
Their combine numbers, Kyle, and Isaiah were very, very similar in terms of his speed, his ability to explode and bend. and he's not going to play off the ball linebacker, but he's a guy that at that edge position, the ability to get that first step and get around the corner, it could be special. And I don't know if he's going to be a starter right off the bat. They've got some other options, Dorrance Armstrong, but he's going to factor into this mix. And I think it's because of that versatility, and maybe bump him inside in certain situations too. If Dan Quinn says, okay, I want to get my best 4 pass rushers on the field, he can do that too.
Yeah, you talk about Sam Williams' numbers at the combine. I mean, you talk about 6'3.5", 260 pounds, but he ran a 4.46, a 1.52 split. He had a 32-inch vertical. And then you look at Micah Parsons and what he brought to the table in terms of the combine: 6'3", 250 pounds, 4.36 with a 1.59 split and a 34-inch vertical. It's almost, I mean, Parsons had better numbers. He was a little bit quicker, but in terms of a guy coming from the second level playing in the front seven, there's not a whole lot of guys in the NFL that can do all of those things the same way that Micah Parsons and Sam Williams could do.
Not at all. Those guys are physical specimens. You talk about Micah Parsons, 6'3", 250, running a 4.36. That was
a large man
as a receiver, Nate.
Crazy.
And that's insanity. That is insane.
That's Rob Phillips' speed.
Yeah, that's insane.
I think I probably ran that when I was 12.
I'm sure you did.
I'm sure you did.
Give or take a couple seconds. Yeah,
Nate just
I ran
barreling down at 12 years old.
20-yard dash.
Rob P., you were talking about, like the third down situations and the ability for these guys, the versatility that Dan Quinn has at his disposal to create a rush. Yesterday at practice, we saw 4 down linemen, all right, in a third down situation. It was Micah Parsons on the outside, Dante Fowler on the outside.
Ooh, the defensive line. My goodness. Sorry. Dorrance Armstrong got in there on Cooper Rush.
And Dorrance Armstrong.
There's your other guy.
Those were the 4 right there.
Go.
It was D-Law and Dorrance on the inside, Micah Parsons and Fowler on the outside. You want to talk about 4 guys that can get after it. And guess what? If they just happen to get a little tired, all of a sudden you go to the bench and grab guys from there too.
Yeah, it's who do you block? It's creating matchups. And honestly, when Randy Gregory was here, we didn't see enough of it, because guys were banged up. But when Randy Gregory and DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons were all together, that was a matchup nightmare for defenses. And so they're going to try to replicate Gregory's production with a bunch of different guys. But like you said, they've got still guys, Sam Williams stepping in here as a second-round pick, that can create matchup problems too.
And the thing about it, man, Parsons will always be more effective coming up the middle, because the guys that they have on the outside will be guaranteed one-on-one blocks. And that's why I tell people, don't be so quick to just put him at defensive end when you can put him in the middle of the field and give other guys a chance to get after the quarterback.
Looks like Zeke getting to the edge there. Look at these running backs getting a couple of looks. You saw Malik Davis, Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott, all of which having pretty good reps. And we're not even in the run and play action emphasis anymore. We're in first, second, third down rotations. This is where you really get to see the guys move down the field and consistently try and put a drive together.
Yeah, I want to know how Rob P. has felt that Freaky Zeke has looked this off. I mean, obviously in camp. This is his second off season that he's worked with a footwork specialist. Are you seeing that pay off for him?
Yeah, I do. I think he looks in great shape again this year. I think he talked last year about his short area quickness, like you said, working with a personal trainer on that. I think we saw that early in the season last year, Isaiah. It was just that PCL knee injury that really got to him starting in week 4, and he was not the same guy down the stretch. And I think getting him back healthy, as long as he can stay healthy, I think he can still be a very productive Zeke. And I think, he's stepping in here. This is good work for him, and Denver will be next week too, because I don't know how much we're going to see him in preseason, to be honest with you.
He had a tough task right there of blocking Micah Parsons. If he's going to get good reps, this might be some of the good reps, because he was one-on-one with Micah Parsons. Parsons got back there in that last drill and would have had a sack of Dak Prescott. So the last 2 guys we've really talked about, certainly we're probably not going to see a lot of them in the preseason. Do you expect, Rob, to see maybe some Tony Pollard as he got that last carry?
Yeah, absolutely. Are you talking
a little
about
bit of Tony in the preseason?
Yeah, I think so. I think, it'd be interesting how much, Kyle and Nate, because he is going to have a larger role on offense. So I don't know how much it's going to be, but I think he's probably going to get a little bit of work.
I think you practice him against Denver these 2 times. You give him a lot of the blitz situations so he can get better at it. Then you don't worry about the game.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't worry about the game. Some of these guys are going to get major work in these next 2 teams that we're getting ready to play in the preseason. We're going to these teams, and they're going to get major work, and that's where you get all your work in at. and then you don't have to be worried about preseason so much. Because if you go against a new body, a new face, a new team, you're going to be geeked up in practice.
It's a little different. It's a little different.
Can you help the people understand? Because I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be a little bit worrisome if they don't see Zeke in the preseason. If they don't see TP in the preseason, right? Because of the reps and the intensity of the game. Help them understand how competitive these preseason practices against other teams are.
It's ugly. You going into somebody's backyard, man.
That was not the word I expected Nate to come out with first.
No, I'm saying it's like two pit bulls, man. I mean, I'm sitting over in my yard and Zeke going to jump the fence. Yeah. He ain't coming back. Yeah. And that's what I'm trying. These guys are going to be ready. They're going to be hyped. And especially these coaches saying, hey, man, this is where we're going to get our work in. The veteran guys understand that. We have veteran guys. This is where we're going to get our work in. Pick up the tempo. Let's move. These coaches are going to be raising a little sand now because they're going to be geeked too because they're going to be go out with their buddy the night before saying, man, we're going to get on y'all. Yeah. So, yeah, it can be nasty, man. It can be bloody. So they're going to be hyped.
Getting to see the offensive line work a little bit here with Dak Prescott back and forth. Tyler Smith's at left guard. Connor McGovern at right guard. You got Terrence Steele at right tackle. Josh Ball's been playing left tackle. He's trying to win that swing tackle job. He's been on both sides. As now Dak, again, tucks it and runs. But really, at least through the early parts of these team drills, it looks dominated by the defensive line. Is that worrisome when it comes to the offensive front and what you're seeing from those guys? Because there hasn't been a ton of Tyron Smith. He's kind of been limited on the pitch count. Same thing with Zach Martin on the opposite side. But if you need Josh Ball to win that swing tackle job, are you concerned?
No, because it's work ahead. And I know I say this, we talking about 2 weeks of work. But you have to let these young guys go. Nobody's letting any players go. You know, so that little gunpowder they got stowed away, they're going to have to keep that stowed away for 2 more weeks because nobody's letting loose any players. And if you're any good, they're going to find a way to keep you on their roster. So these are the guys we're going to have to deal with. And I'm not worried because our defense right now, because when I played, we had that same problem. With Charles Haley. They used to bring it to us, and it'd be the days on time that we just getting through the practice trying to block these great players. So it's same here. And I'm not saying these are Hall of Famers, but these guys are ahead of our offense. And we trying to get our offensive line some unity and some continuity, and we still trying to switch in and out of the guard. So it's going to look a little ugly.
So you're saying that even though the domination has been from the defensive line, that this offensive line is benefiting at the moment, even if it is a quote-unquote bad rep, they're learning and they're getting better.
I promise you, when they go to Denver, and if Denver doing this, we may have some problems. We may have some serious problems. Yeah. You know, and it still come back for me, the consistency of getting a left guard in there, letting them be who – I know who the center is. I know who the right guard is. Yeah. I know who my right tackle is. Who is my left guard? And believe it or not, these 5 guys have to work together to get some continuity so they can be better. You don't have to be a great offensive line to be good. You have to work in unison together to be a great offensive line.
So we've got one more play here. I believe this is the last play of the drill. You've got a couple guys out there, Brendan Smith, Ty Freifogel, young receivers trying to make an impact. They're going to go to Smith deep down the far sideline, and it's incomplete. Off the mark from that play forward. I believe it was Ben DiNucci. No, it was Will Greer who threw that football.
Got a little tussle.
Oh, a little bit of a back and forth. There's that bit. About time. You like seeing this?
Absolutely, you like seeing
this. This is that point in camp. This is about time.
Yeah, this is family brothers fight. Right, Nate?
Yeah, I used to win.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
I think they're going to go with one more play here.
A little offsides penalty.
Yep, that penalty kind of reset things. So we'll stick with the play here before we take our next break.
Nate, you were talking about the offensive line. Do you like seeing McGovern in there, or do you want to see the young cat?
I want to see the young cat.
They've both been mixing in there.
Yeah, but you need some continuity because they getting ran through, Kyle.
Yeah, that's true. You just told me they were getting better, Nate. I don't want to hear it.
Getting better.
I don't want to hear it. Oh, defensive line again. Well, just speaking to what you just said, that's exactly what we've seen. It's been defensive line initially, but when we come back, we've got Nick Eatman joining the show. Rob, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back with the final team session right after this.
Thanks, guys. That was fun.
Oxnard, California. It's live coverage of the 2022 training camp presented by American Airlines. A Saturday practice under the sun on the West Coast. Nate Newton, Isaiah Stanback, and now joined by Nick Eatman. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Glad you're with us. Nick, welcome to the desk.
I appreciate it.
You got to see a little bit of practice up close and personal for a little bit there.
I got to move around, unlike you guys.
Yeah, we've been tethered down for a little bit of time.
How many people have you said, hey, could you please move? You can't really do that, can you?
There were about 45 players in blue and white jerseys that were in our way during that last segment. But now we get a better look at some red zone work. This is the first team offense. Dak Prescott leading a drive up against the first team defense. Look at the pressure off the edge. Micah Parsons, but it doesn't matter. One-handed snag in the pylon for Ezekiel Elliott right up to the desk. There we go. There's Zeke right there.
That was a heck of a catch, man. That was pretty much a simulated screenplay. On the outside, you had two receivers running slant routes, taking all the coverage into the inside, throw Zeke out to the flat, put it out there towards the sideline like we talked about earlier. Freaky Zeke with the one-hand catch, brought it in for the touchdown.
So did that make Leighton Van Der Resch have to go over the top? Is
Absolutely.
that kind of like a visible screen
What
or
you're
something?
trying to, yes, exactly what it is. You're trying to create a wash. You're trying to make it just convolute things in the inside. The guy that has man-to-man coverage, once you declare who that is, he now has to run over the top of all that mess to try to get to his guy he's responsible for, and that's what makes it hard for him to cover Zeke out the backfield.
I can't wait until we get a little bit closer to the action here in a little bit, and they just keep coming over this direction.
Just don't throw a ball over this way.
I got you.
No promises. No promises. Second team out there after the first team scored a touchdown. Keep in mind, Will Greer's there. So is the defensive line. That was Devin Harper in the backfield. Looked like Neville Gallimore might have gotten in there as well, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter first team, second team when it comes to the defensive line. This reminds me of back to those 90s days when you had 1 to 8 and you really didn't get much of a difference right now. Obviously, Tank and Parsons and the rushers, you'll be better at the first team. But this second team line is really, really good given the big problems to the O-line.
Nate, what are you looking for here on the O-line?
I'm just looking for continuity, and that's going to be my word the rest of this camp.
I'm looking
5
for
guys
McGovern.
playing together, getting something on the guy. We got 75,
Josh Ball
at the left tackle.
You got Smith at left guard.
See, he let the guy grab him, but he kept good feet.
Nice.
What a move by Simi Fehoko on Nashawn Wright. Worked off of the coverage. Wright was in the right position, but the throw put on his back shoulder by Will Greer. Very nice placement to allow that play to be made.
That was a great back shoulder throw, and what happens is you start getting to the back of the end zone with these post routes. Like you mentioned, Nashawn Wright had the inside hip. He did a great job positioning-wise, but one thing that he can't account for is the quarterback putting it on his back shoulder, going away from his momentum. Easy pass and catch by those two.
Nice job by Tyler Smith picking up Carlos Watkins. I believe you were going to mention that in the middle of the play. It looked like he walled him off pretty nicely.
Yeah, that's Big Nate's boy in there, Big Tyler Smith.
Yeah, man, the guy got a great jerk on him, but he sat his body down and squared back up and kept him out.
All right, first team offensive line, quarterback back in there, and it's Connor McGovern at left guard, Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz, and CeeDee Lamb at the receiver spots. Let's see what Prescott has back in the shotgun. It's Sam Williams coming off the edge against Tyron Smith. Out route. Good coverage from Trayvon Diggs all over Noah Brown.
Trayvon say, no more, fellas. No more.
Actually, Noah Brown ran a heck of a route, but what he did at the top is once he created that separation coming out of his break, he didn't keep working back towards the quarterback. He pretty much stopped his feet, and that allowed Trayvon to get back in there and break it up.
See what the first team offense has. Both of the offensive drives have scored in this drill to this point, after the defense really had some success early on.
Double stacks.
Both sides of the formation. Prescott, plenty of time over the middle, one-handed. Schultz gave a good look at it, but it was Leighton Van Der Resch that had him in coverage. That could have been kind of dangerous on the backside.
Yeah, it's a little dangerous there. I always actually had my eyes in the backfield. It looked like it was a 3-man front, but you had D-Law standing up and coming on the inside stunt. He got tripped up a little bit and came a little bit close to number 4's knees, so I kind of held my breath for a second there.
Wow. Good coverage on that play from Leighton Van Der Resch, Nick.
Yeah, we really did a nice job of taking him all the way down the field, and that's something that isn't always the best part of his game, but the way that pass was, it went right to him.
Prescott over the middle. There's a wide open Dalton Schultz. Again, Van Der Resch in coverage. That time Schultz got the better of him.
And they did a nice job getting it out because Parsons did a stunt on that front side, and I was right in their own deck. They need to try to tell these defensive guys, look who the quarterback is. Because they've been pretty close these last few times.
Really looks like Dak's with a little bit of better look from the offensive line standpoint, but he's been able to pick apart this defense, just nickel and diming down the field.
He's getting it out quick. His pre-reads are pretty good here.
And then back to the read option, and it's a give to Zeke right up the middle. Nice job by Terrell Basham off the edge.
Yeah, Basham did a good job doing his responsibilities, getting upfield, and then retracing his steps, coming down the line to be able to run that play down.
Now, these two running backs out there, I know you guys have talked about it, but the key for this to work is Zeke got that run, but Pollard's got to get the same run. They're going to throw it to the flat to Pollard. They got to throw it to Zeke. They got to make it honest. If you're going to put them both out there, they both have to do everything.
Jalen Tolbert on Trayvon Diggs to the near side of the formation. Keep that in mind. No, they give it right back to Zeke up the middle. There was a lot of bodies right in the middle.
But the difference is right there. Tristan Hill got off on 63 on 73.
On Biotish? On Tyler Smith.
Tyler, he got off on him, but this kid is so strong till he muscled him back in front of him and moved him off the ball for some gain. Last year, that guy would have been knocked to the backfield.
Getting a good look at Chauncey Goldstein on the interior. He's actually playing a little bit of 5 technique, going out wide a little bit more. 3 down linemen as Parsons is also looming on that edge as well. Prescott, plenty of time. Has to spin out. Carlos Watkins got in the backfield, and Schultz got tangled up with Van Der Resch.
That's a no call there.
Yeah, they're not going to call a flag.
That wasn't no flag. That wasn't a flag. Schultz ran up under him. Oh, man.
And they are calling for the field goal unit. Keep that in mind, Nick.
Scared.
The kicking situation hasn't been great.
Why are you being so nice?
I'm trying to be nice here.
Has it been so great?
Okay.
Have you ever seen an extra point that didn't make it? I mean, I get we're getting a wind here, but this isn't Chicago. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Nailed that one right through the middle, though. It was a short field goal. Give him credit where credit is due. He closed out a drive. Had 3 points there.
I don't think Nate's going to give him any credit on that one.
None at all, Nate?
We got problems.
Not any whatsoever?
We got some serious problems here at kicker.
It's all fun and games to the game start.
That's a good point.
I liked what Fossil said the other day about yes, it's a nice wind here, but he's like, what do you think it is in Philly and Washington and New York when you play in December? They got a game in Tennessee right after Christmas. Right off the water there. So you got to be able to handle the elements, and there's barely any here.
See what Cooper Rush has in store. By the way, we said that in the first segment. Mickey Spagnola said, but there's no trees in Washington.
Trees aren't.
Ooh, did you see Big 9-5 back there?
No, I didn't see it.
My goodness.
I got someone kind of standing in front
I'm
of
me.
me.
Mr. Ridgeway.
Kyle. Big Ridgeway. I am a big fan of this kid, man. I call him a kid, but he looks like a massive refrigerator.
6'5", 320 pounds, just 23 years old out of Arkansas. I mean, he is a line plugger, to say the least. I mean, he is in the middle of that defensive line. He does a great job of doing so.
He's a refrigerator. A lot of guys.
Industrial size.
Yeah, he's just a refrigerator, man. I'm serious. Not fat, just a refrigerator. He's on top of Connor McGovern right now. Is that Connor?
Looks like he's head up on Connor McGovern, yes. Or no, that's Matt Farniok and McGovern.
Farniok, yeah, he slipped the gap there.
See, my refrigerator doesn't do that. It doesn't move from one side of the kitchen to the other. I mean, that's what's so good about him is that he's big, but he can move, laterally.
Do you think he moves better or the same as a Quentin Bohanna? I mean, both of them were day 3 draft picks within the last 2 years. That might be one of the competitions on who makes the roster.
About
I hope both of those guys are there because I like seeing the combination of them working together.
The guy I think moves the best is 72.
Yeah, Hill.
Tristan Hill, back and forth.
You're not going to call him a refrigerator.
Yeah, size isn't necessarily there. 6'3", 308 is what he's listed at. He may be a little thinner than that.
Screens.
Off balance throw. That one off the hands. Trying to get it to Aaron Champlin in his first practice back.
The thing you have to admire about this defense, is you can get them, you can out-angle them, but they run so well, they recover so well, you know, and everything that they do is just nice.
Yeah, good to see Malik Jefferson there. That kind of snuffed that whole thing out.
Dak Prescott trying to pump up the crowd, provide a little bit of a scenario here. It's about 3,000 in attendance today, and then you've got Jonathan Garibay stepping up for the field goal attempt. This is to try and close out the drive for the second teamers. Kick is up, plenty of distance, and that one is off and to the right. He missed it again.
All right. Nick, what you got for that?
Well, you know, your quarterback's trying to ice him over there, trying to get the crowd going. Usually you want to keep it down. No, this is like we said. This is borderline terrible, and it's going to get worse than this when it comes to the pressure of kicks.
So what are your options now? I mean, you're all the way into the second week of camp.
Yes.
Wrapping up here, about to go off to go practice against Denver in your first preseason game, and you have this level of confidence with your kicking game. Where are you at?
There's 20 guys that have probably made kicks and that are out on the street. I mean, I think you have to get one of them at this point. I think Liram has made a couple last year with some other team, or with the Cowboys. He had some extra points.
And he went back and forth between here. He was with the practice squad, came in, made the extra points when he needed to. But then he went to Carolina, and he actually had a couple of attempts while he was with the Panthers as well. So mostly practice squad in 2021, and now he's trying to make the active roster, of course.
Yeah, I mean, Garabay's a young kicker, but you just got to figure out like how long are we gonna go with this, and maybe he's a gamer. Maybe you get to a game and see what happens. He wouldn't be the first player to struggle out here and play well in a game, Dak.
Very subtle, Nick. Very well done. Speaking of Dak, he's back behind center in the shotgun. Little motion here as Noah Brown goes from right to left in the formation. Dak looking to his left, and lots of pressure up the middle. It was DeMarcus Lawrence that got in there, Nate.
Too much pressure, man. Just ran right. I think it was a steal. I don't want to call the wrong number and embarrass the guy.
He's had a rough practice. Yes, you can talk about him.
He's never been cute in practice. He's a gamer. He's a true gamer, Nick. He's a true gamer.
Who is?
A steal. He looks better in games than he ever would look in practice.
No doubt. I remember against the Chargers last year, like everyone was all afraid about, it was Joey Bosa.
Yeah.
He dominated that game.
Going right back to it. First team offense versus first team defense. There's Dak trying downfield. Wide open. Jalen Tolbert for the score. How about that?
Sorry.
That's okay, Nate. It's practice. Have some fun.
I'm sorry.
Let it fly
good.
A little bit.
I mean, that's 1 out of 5. We've got everybody blocked up. And you see when you get everybody blocked up what the quarterback can do, right? We have to get it. I think we're going to go 2-on-2, 1-on-1.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to go to break real quickly. When we come back, we're going to wrap things up and take a couple extra looks at what the preseason could look like for the Dallas Cowboys. Continue with us as our live coverage of Training Camp 2022 presented by American Airlines continues. looks of a very well-earned Saturday practice and a day off tomorrow as the Cowboys wrap things up here in Oxnard, California. It's live coverage of Training Camp 2022 presented by American Airlines. Welcome back, Nate Newton, Isaiah Stanback, Nick Eatman here of DallasCowboys.com. I'm Kyle Yeomans. First off, before we get into some of the post-practice stuff, I do want to send a shout-out to everybody who was a part of this. Back at home at the Star in Frisco, Matt Kent, Caden Gates, Jody Reimers, a ton of personalities.
Anyone else?
I can name a ton of them. Jasmine, we've got Rocks up in the booth, Alex Lilly, Chris Beam. There are a ton of people involved in this. Kevin Teneman's in there as well that have brought you this practice. And then, of course, the writers like Rob, and you've also got Mickey, you got Patrick in his first week. It took a lot to bring this off. But let's talk about what we saw in practice today. Defensive heavy, right, Nick? What else can you talk about? The offensive line had some struggles. Defensive line, they did their job.
Yeah, I think when you look at really good players on the offensive line, you can say, all right, they got 1, 2, 3, 4-ish. Now you go to the defensive line, you get to 8, 9, and I think that you see it in practice a lot because when the second-team defensive line comes in against the second-team offensive line, it's not even a battle right now. And so that's affecting these quarterbacks. So anything that Cooper Rush and Will Grier do, it's impressive because they're going up against an offensive line that's not as good.
Yeah, these guys, this defensive line depth is just insane. And to know where we came from, where the Dallas Cowboys came from 2 years ago, where you were just grabbing guys off the street, off the couch to come out here and just try to make some plays for you and just fit a role. This is, it's just a testament to the whole scouting department. Coach McCarthy, Dan Quinn, all these guys, they've done an amazing job flipping this thing on its head.
Yeah, and this is what it's been the whole camp. Offensive line, you have 2 guys play good, 1 guy play bad, 3 guys play good, another guy play bad. And I'm with you, Nick. We got 4 solid guys. We need to work on one. We need to work on our center. Yeah. We need to decide who's our left guard going to be. But other than that, right there, they just got to continue to work, get some consistency. But what I like, fellas, was that young Houston, man. The way Dak featured him today, man, and showed up and showed us that he was on the move. Now, what he'll do next week against Denver, we don't know. But today he shined a little bit.
Talk about a couple of the young wide receivers here. And Jalen Tolbert made the big touchdown grab to cap practice off, send everybody home on a high note. So that was certainly something to keep in mind. But outside of that, Dennis Houston had a good day. You had Dalton Schultz, who had a solid day at the tight end position. What did you see, Isaiah, that impressed you for some of these youngsters?
Just their ability to go out there and just try to make plays. We talk about Dennis Houston. We've been saying his name all week long.
Sure.
More so than even just his ability to run routes and get releases, and he's in the right spots. You heard Dak talk about it in post-practice the other day. He's a guy that I've been dependent on and guys I can rely on ever since OTAs, and this is something that you just don't see out of a guy in his position. Then you got Tolbert coming out here and making plays. Obviously, he's a draft pick, but he still has to show up. He still has to show up and be that guy, and that consistency is absolutely everything when you start talking about young guys and being dependable for number 4.
Well, for me, the guy, if I'm starting the game tomorrow, and you don't have to, but if you did, Noah Brown would be the starter for me. What I like about him is he's been actually really quick in his routes. Everyone says he's a possession guy. I think I've seen more quickness there, but you got to remember, everything's going to go wide with Tony Pollard there, Zeke. They're going to do a lot of things wide. Who do you want out there blocking as well? He can catch the ball, he can run routes, but he's also got that strength on the edge that I think is going to help him too. So Noah Brown, to me, is still that guy next to CD.
And he's kind of stepped up in terms of the big play, too.
Yeah.
He stepped up and made some solid snags. One of which might have been the play of the day, down the right sideline, went up over the top of a cornerback to reel in a deep pass.
Lost it?
Exactly. That's something we haven't necessarily seen from Noah Brown.
And it's very telling when you start seeing guys show up to camp either heavier or being lighter.
Yes.
Noah Brown came in, 10, 15 pounds lighter than he did last year. Well, that goes back to the conversations that we're not privy to with him and his position coach, offensive coordinators. What's the expectation of your contributions going into the next season? Historically, he's been the guy that comes in, and he's the guy that's physical, the run blocker, the guy that's going to allow for you to get the swing routes and the screens. Now, all of a sudden, you see him come out here, he's making these big plays down the field. I think what was told to him this offseason, we need you to be more of a contributor in the receiving game.
Got to keep that in mind. And, this is his number one opportunity to be a significant part of the wide receiver job. A wide receiver room, because No other player on this roster outside of CeeDee Lamb has caught an NFL touchdown pass. Noah Brown has a chance to step up, and this is the best spot he has throughout his career to get to that point. Now, let's talk about Anthony Brown a little bit, too. We talked about the corners. They had some lapses, but really not from Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown had another solid practice today, was very good in coverage, had 3 interceptions last year. Nate, when you look at AB and what he could bring to this defense, it's really stability and consistency, right?
Just when we started to say, maybe not Anthony Brown, he opened up the first day of practice with a pick 6, and he hasn't stopped. They say he changed his number, right? He got rid of the 0.
He dropped the 0.
Yeah, and now he's number 3, so he's a new guy with a new attitude, working extra after practice, doing all he has to do with his technique, and he's playing real well, Isaiah.
It's almost like he hears the murmurs of people saying, maybe we're paying too much for these guys. Maybe he shouldn't be getting paid $5 million a year. And he's like, oh, as soon as you get those questions, I'm going to go out here and show you some answers. He's dependable, man.
Well,
he's reliable.
He only played one game last year, if you ask the fans. It was the Raiders.
It was a Raiders game.
Only game he played. Bad game for him, bad game for everyone. Good game for the refs and their arms. but I mean that he had interceptions. He had Trayvon was doing his thing, and Anthony Brown I think he arguably is having the best training camp as anyone.
Yeah.
And that's not even with expectations. That's just he has been consistent. Now that last touchdown to Tolbert could have been a little bit of his work. We'll see what the tape looks like, because there was about 3 corners looking around like, I thought you had him, I thought I had him. Could have been him kind of on the front side, but he's been outstanding at camp.
It's really exciting to see, because last year we came into training camp talking about whether or not it was AB or Kelvin Joseph in that starting spot. Was there going to be an expendability for, if that's even a word, for Anthony Brown? Can he be expendable with Kelvin Joseph being that second-round pick? He's completely squashed that, and he has solidified that starting job.
Who's been the best second year cornerback out here? Has it been Joseph, or has it been Nashawn
Wright?
I think he's actually been better.
I would agree with you,
You're not
actually.
going to fade it up on Nashawn. Now, the back shoulder to semi, that's how you do it. But if you want to fade it up there, no, he's a basketball
What
player.
have you seen from him in his second camp?
Nashawn?
Yeah.
Just consistency, just playing well, man, making plays when they have come to him. And just to be honest with you fellas, man, Joseph has let this off-the-field thing affect him. Last year he was a little bit more active, a little bit more about doing his business, man. And sometimes he needs to start back talking. Because that's who he is. He needs to start back talking. What happened has happened.
That's a good point.
And get back to talking. Get back to being you, so you can start back competing. Because I was a talker in practice, not in games. But
you're a talker now. What are you talking about?
When I talk, I feel good, and I start to make things happen. He need to get back to talking and being himself.
That's a great point.
That's tough to do, though, honestly, because you got to remember what he's probably been told. Keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, and go out here and play. But it's the same with Dak last year.
Right.
It's like, just go out there and throw. You don't have to run and do all that. Well, that's not him.
Right,
and you got to get back to him. And so he's got to find that balance again. And it's not easy. He's got something looming over him, and he's probably trying to figure out, is he going to, get a suspension? And who knows?
No doubt about it. And that off-the-field conversation, as much as you don't want it to be there, it's always going to be there. And that transitions into Dak Prescott. We'll cap off talking about QB1. But I really want to talk about the fact that since 2017, this is really the first time that Dak Prescott hasn't had an outside storyline, whether it's the contract, the pandemic, of course, the injury. I think if you can look at this season as really the first fully healthy, fully focused offseason for Dak Prescott since 2017, there should be some sky-high expectations for him this year, right, Isaiah?
I think there always is, and I think nobody's going to put more pressure on himself than him. But the thing for him is I think he wants the continuity. I think the leadership perspective is everything for Dak. He doesn't, even though he's going to get all the focus doesn't necessarily need to be on him. I think it needs to be on this offense's ability to run the ball. And I've said it 1,000 times. I think he's more of a play-action quarterback than he is a drop-back quarterback. That's not a bad thing. Every quarterback has their thing that they do well. He just needs that running game to be present for that. And I think if that is present, I think you'll see some of the best Dak you've ever seen.
Yeah, and I think that the ability for him to run and just be fearless about it. When it's there, take it. I mean, there's stats out there. When he gets, we're talking like 25 yards a game, 30. When he gets to that 25 or 30 yards, the Cowboys win more football games because it's just another element defenses have to worry about.
Another element that they have to worry about. Real quickly, Nate.
When he plays with his instincts. When he plays with his instincts, he's a better quarterback. I mean, we can keep him up under 35 passes. It's a winning team.
A little bit of a pitch count there from Nate Newton. A couple things to worry about there, but plenty more to come coverage-wise from DallasCowboys.com here over the next week. Wednesday, the team leaves, goes to Denver. There will be a joint practice with the Denver Broncos, and then, of course, a week from today, preseason football is back on your television screen. CBS 11, Bill Jones, Isaiah Stanback, Babe Laufenberg will be on the call. I'll be on the sidelines. Plenty more coverage to go. Should be some more fun. For everybody I named a little bit earlier, for Nick Eatman, Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton, I'm Kyle Yeoman saying so long from Oxnard, California. Thanks for joining us for Training Camp 2022.